Welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue our little look at the historical side of the Horus Heresy with the Battle of Istvaan V. So Istvaan V was the second of the four big battles at the opening of the heresy. Istvaan III was the purging of the four traitor legions, the Sons of Horus, the Emperor's Children, the Death Guard, and the World Eaters. And Istvaan V is the Emperor's Retribution. 7 legions, loyal to the Emperor, are sent against the 4 traitor legions. They are going to take vengeance upon them. So it's several months after, about 3 or 4 months after Istvaan III, the traitors, 4 traitor legions, have fortified the Urgal Depression. This is basically what the art says. Istvaan looks like it's basically just black dirt, volcano stuff. And their fleet has been dispersed. When the Loyalists arrive, they expect to have to punch through the traitor fleet, but they can't find the traitor fleet. And they can't do an exterminatus on the planet because it would ruin the story. Also, because the traitors have such powerful AA guns that basically you can't get into a position to do it. And they have the sealed bunkers, so good luck, unless you want to pulverize the planet into dust, which is something that is basically not done, although has been in the past. 3 legions arrived first, and the other 4 came in slightly after them. And the 3 legions were the Iron Hands. So let's have a look at the Iron Hands first. The Iron Tenth, led by Ferrus Manus, which means Iron Hand in Latin, just in case it wasn't enough. Ferrus Manus has a silver metallic substance on his arms, hence the name Iron Hands. Their motto is "the flesh is weak," and they love to cut their limbs off and replace them with bionics. Not necessarily cut them off, but if your arm gets damaged, don't even try to heal it, just put a bionic on, stop. Instead, because metal is better than flesh, because flesh is weak, it gets corrupted. Iron is strong, metal is strong. You can lift more with a prosthetic arm, you can run faster with a prosthetic leg, that sort of thing. In the 30k universe, anyway. Ferrus Manus is mad. He is enraged because his closest brother, Fulgrim, who is now with the traitors, he wasn't before. As the traitors were purging their legion on Istvaan, Fulgrim was trying to convince Ferrus Manus to become a traitor. And Ferrus Manus is basically one of the most down-to-earth, straight guys you can possibly imagine. He's just, loyalty is everything. His loyalty is his strength. And his brother has come to him and said, you'll totally join us, right? And it doesn't go well. Fulgrim attacks him with a sword that Ferrus Manus made. So Ferrus grabs it and basically explodes it in his hand. And then gets smashed in the head with a hammer. After Fulgrim says, I'll give you another chance. Basically, I know you'll come around. And Ferrus says, you better kill me because I'm going to kill you. Ferrus Manus is enraged that his brother saw some weakness in him. He's enraged that he is perceived as someone who could be a traitor. He's mad, he's extremely mad that he was betrayed, but he's mad that his closest brother, the person who knew him the best, thought that he could turn and betray everything he's fought for his whole life. He knows that others have seen weakness in him, and so he's on a vengeance crusade. He's taken a chunk of his legion and just set out as fast as he can. He's not thinking properly. He is on a mission to clear his name. And that is very tragic, because he takes the first 3 legions he can find, which include the Salamanders, the 18th Legion. Primarch is Vulcan, and they have a very famous war cry that comes up after the Battle of Istvaan. But prior to Istvaan, it was "into the fires of battle, unto the anvil of war." The Salamanders are like fire. They come from a planet called Nocturne, which is basically just volcanoes and lava everywhere. They're very good craftsmen. They basically all handcraft their own weapons. So your Salamander's bolt guns and armor is considered better because they've worked on it and tuned it and that sort of thing. They love flamethrowers, which are called flamers. They love melter guns, which superheated, basically just think of like a plasma torch that flies through the air that destroys vehicles and things. They love fire, they love heat. They have a genetic defect in their gene seed, which is their thing that makes them Astartes, where once they're exposed to Nocturne's sort of base radiation, Astartes have this thing in their skin which lets them darken or lighten their skin to absorb more or reflect more radioactive stuff in the air, basically. Although once a salamander goes to nocturne, their skin turns jet black, like this, and not like sub-Saharan African, like pitch black, midnight black, like coal black. They don't have different features. If they're European, they have European features, Asian features. Their skin just becomes midnight black with bright red eyes, which is terrifying as hell. Very terrifying. Although, ironically, they look the scariest because they look like this. They look like this. Although, ironically, they are the most caring, honorable legion. They genuinely care about normal, innocent people. They had a run-in with Conrad Kurz when they were taking a planet together, because Conrad Kurz doesn't believe in innocent people. And the Salamanders only believe in innocent people, and it came to a quarrel there. But they basically prioritize the safety of civilians and Imperial Army troops. They prioritize the safety of civilians and Imperial Army troops and the normal people of the Imperium. If they can take a city without killing any of the civilians, they'll do that. They will actually risk their own lives by making the battle plans less effective in order to not risk civilian casualties. So they're the more human legion. And the reason they're there earliest is because the Iron Hands, the Salamanders, and the Raven Guard were slightly closer to Istvaan. So they got there about a couple of hours, maybe a day earlier than everyone else. So the Raven Guard, the third of the first three legions in the first wave. The 19th Legion, led by Corvus Corax. Their motto is Victorus aut Mortis, which in Latin means victory or death, although that's not proper Latin, but anyway. They're the hit-and-run specialists. They love stealth and recon. They're the sort of legion that will snipe at you to pin you in place and then jump on you with assault marines with jump packs and power claws, and they'll pin you in place from afar and then move in secretly and attack you and ambush you. They love ambushes. They love to... The Raven Guard are basically the ultimate stealth legion. Second ultimate stealth legion. Corvus Corax, who we'll call Corax from now on, is actually a latent psyker. So he has the ability to become invisible, although he doesn't know how to do it, and he can't do it whenever he wants. But basically, when he needs to be invisible, he's invisible, which is something is very handy when you're a 12 or 14 foot tall superhuman, engineered for stealth hit and run warfare, and no one can see you, and you have claws on your fists that can cut through literally anything, which makes him a very good stealth warrior. They also have a genetic defect in their gene seed, which makes them basically ghost white with black hair. The joke is that the Raven Guard are the emo kids of the Horus Heresy. They have an interesting thing that affects them called the Sable Brand, which you don't really hear much about in the lore because of a reason we'll find out later. Where basically, incredibly rarely, some Marines will just completely lose all sense of self-preservation. They will not care at all about their own self-preservation. It sort of turns off in their own mind. And these become what are called Moritats. The name is a bit weird, but basically they strap a jump pack on their back and they dual-wield incredibly dangerous, powerful weapons like plasma guns or Volkite Serpentias. Things that you would be very careful when using, but they just put it on full auto and go nuts. And other legions have also started using these troops. They find crazy psychos in the legion and give them the equivalent of live hand grenades, and they just run around chucking things and doing all crazy stuff. Like, imagine if you gave a modern soldier a MP5 or something like that fired 40mm explosive rounds. But if you held the trigger down too long, it would explode in their hand. And this person has no self-preservation. What do you think is going to happen with that? They're going to go full auto with 90-round extended mags and go nuts and probably get themselves killed. So the Raven Guard have that as a pretty interesting feature, but their main thing is stealth. Recon and stealth. They wait for a battle to start, commit basic troops, see where the enemy is, and then respond to where the enemy's weakest. And they get in and out before you can respond to them. And they basically just pin you down and pick you with 1,000 cuts and destroy you before you can even try and strike back. That's basically the Raven Guard. So, the Raven Guard, the Salamanders, and the Iron Warriors. Ferrus Manus is just completely taken over by his own pride, basically, and says, we have to get down there and we have to engage them immediately. The 4 legions are behind us. They'll reinforce us. We have to engage the traders now. We have to get on them before they can organize. We have to attack before they can respond to what we're doing. Get in there quick before they can build even more defenses. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And he manages to basically bully Vulcan and Corax into following him down to the planet. So on the planet, the Emperor's children, who are sort of in the center, they're now properly corrupted. They had a big musical orgy ritual thing where a Serena D'Angelo, I think her name was, painted a big, gross, disgusting mural with her own bodily fluids and fecal matter and the bodily fluids of people she engaged in extracurricular adult activities with and then murdered, and then painted a big picture with their viscera and other fluids. That was so appealing that the Slaneshi demon of excess lives in it, semi-part-time, lives in this big, gross painting. They played music they had heard in the Lear Temple, which summoned a bunch of demons, and which started killing people. And the Emperor's children are basically now completely obsessed with pleasure, to the point that during the battle, some of them are getting cut apart with lightning claws and swords and all that sort of thing, and they don't even fight back. They just stand there enjoying the orgasmic feeling of being torn to pieces, because it's a sensation that they've never experienced before, and they just get into it so much. They're basically a legion of degenerate perverts. What have I written here? They basically do a bunch of... They have... Astartes are resistant to drugs, so you can't really drug them. They have developed space cocaine so powerful that it can incapacitate Astartes. They have developed space meth so powerful that it can make even Astartes' teeth fall out and make them live in trailers and be that sort of thing. They've got space heroin that'll just destroy your whole life in one go. They're ultimate degenerates. Their armor is now covered in the skin of the brothers they killed on Istvaan. So the loyalists they killed, they've now stretched their horrified faces over their chests and begin to ritually scar themselves, like Lucius, because it feels good. Lucius's armor, this doesn't happen now, it happens later. His armor basically begins to meld to his body, and when he gets shot, he actually feels fantastic, so he just stands there. They're basically a legion of weirdos. They have things called noise marines now, which are marines who use noise as a weapon. They can tear you apart with just sound itself. These big sound guns that fire out these sound waves. And they love to fight for the enjoyment of fighting, for the sensation. It's not about winning or losing. It's not about killing or being killed. It's just about fighting for the pleasure of the experiences you have that you don't get anywhere else. The experiences of firing a bullet that hits somebody, or firing so close that you barely miss them and you can terrify someone by spraying them full auto and that sort of thing. So the Emperor's children are fully gone by now. It only took 3 months, but their legion is basically just a bunch of people doing a bunch of space cocaine and then hurting themselves to feel. The other legions are okay. The World Eaters, they're just psychopaths who only feel rage. So they're just where they always were. The Death Guard are still stoic Death Guard. They're not corrupted at all. And Horus is refusing to work with the Warp in any way. He refuses to work with demons, although he knows they exist and he's had conversations with them. But he refuses to let the Warp help him because he says that he will use it as a tool but not serve it. That's how he stands at the moment. So the Emperor's children are fully gone. The World Eaters were always fully gone, so they're just the usual selves. The Death Guard are very stoic, proud people who are just here to show their strength, and the Sons of Horus are standing by the War Master. The 3 legions perform a pretty standard central attack. I'll put a thing up here. The Imperial Army was there too with super heavy tanks and stuff, but there was a Titan Legion as well. But really it's an Astartes fight. Most of the Horus Heresy is Astartes versus other Astartes. Space Marines is Astartes, same thing. The Iron Hands rush the center, pretty hardcore. Ferrus Manus is just desperate to get to Fulgrim, so he finds the Emperor's children, which just happen to be in the center, and just charges them with his personal, I think it's 1,000 Terminator Gorgon Terminators, which is basically his private, personal version of Terminator armor that's like souped up to the max. And they push through the center of the traitor line and actually put a pretty big dent in it. The Raven Guard are on the right flank and the Salamanders are on the left, as you can see on the picture here. The Salamanders attack and they basically come, straight on, clash with the Death Guard and sort of get halted on the left-hand flank. The Raven Guard wait until the Sons of Horus are basically engaged with the flank of the Iron Warriors. They see where they are, and then they pounce on them. And then the World Eaters who've been held in reserve attack the Raven Guard once the Raven Guard have come in and attacked the Sons of Horus. And there's only about 90,000 Salamanders, 80,000 Raven Guard, and even less Iron Warriors, because the Iron Hands. The Iron Hands have sent only a part of their chapter. Part of their legion, sorry. The only part of the legion was... Ferrus Manus just grabbed basically whoever's nearby and went. He's so full of rage. So, they're fighting. The fighting basically stops. They hit... their momentum is gone. They made a good attack. They pushed in. They did a bunch of damage, but it's time to retreat. They look behind them and they see the 4 loyalist legions that are here to reinforce them start landing at the drop site, and they say, look, it's time to disengage. Let's disengage, pull back. We're basically low on ammunition. We're pretty worn out, as much as Astartes can be worn out. Let's pull back, resupply, join up with the other 4 legions who are even more numerous than we are, and then we'll launch our attack and we'll crush this rebellion right now. Unfortunately, 2 things happen which make that a little bit tricky. First of all, apart from that, the traitor forces begin to disengage. Even Angron disengages. And you'll remember from the last video, Angron is the petulant child who is only mad and only wants to kill things because only in killing does he feel. He disengages, and the traitor legion basically pulls back, reinforces again. And so the loyalists disengage, and they begin to fall back. However, the first big tragedy that happens is that Ferrus Manus sees Fulgrim. So Fulgrim reveals himself to Ferrus Manus, holding his demon sword, the Lair Blade. And Ferrus Manus, overcome by rage, this is the guy who saw weakness in him. He's going to kill him because he swore that he would kill Fulgrim. And so Ferrus Manus pushes forward as the other legions are falling back. And to this day, the Iron Warriors do not like Raven Guard or Salamanders because they say that if they had just stuck it out and fought, what happened next wouldn't have happened. Which is not true, by the way, but who cares? So they rush forward. The Iron Warriors push forward, and Fulgrim and Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus, I knew I'd get it, fight a duel, and you can actually see their Primarch models are in this duel. Ferrus Manus was swinging his hammer Forge Breaker, and Fulgrim had the Lair Blade. And they're fighting, and the demon releases its grip on Fulgrim just as Fulgrim cuts off Ferrus Manus' head. And Ferrus Manus' head goes flying through the air. He is now dead, decapitated. And Fulgrim is now completely freed from the demon and fully understands what he has just done, and it basically destroys him. Fulgrim is completely overcome by the grief of the action he's just done. He has just killed his favorite brother, and the thing that made him do it is now no longer there, and he's left with his own conscience of having killed the thing in the universe that was closest to him. And he basically sinks into an immense depression. And the little demon then comes back, or the greater demon, I think, comes back and whispers to him and says, I can give you release. I can give you nothing. I can make you feel nothing forever. I can put you into an oblivion, and all you have to do is surrender yourself to me, and I'll put you into oblivion. And Fulgrim is so wrecked that he actually agrees to this. And there's one thing you need to know about demons, is that they lie. Especially in 40k and 30k, they lie. And the demon traps him inside that filthy, disgusting painting and takes possession of his body. So Fulgrim is now stuck in a painting, and a demon controls his body, which is, pretty big. The Primarch, the first ever Primarch to be killed by another Primarch, aside from the 2 legions that got purged, but we don't talk about them because there's literally no information on them. So as far as we know, the first ever Primarch has been killed, and everyone saw it happen. So one of the 2 massive, awful things that happened on Istvaan 5 just happened when Ferrus Manus was beheaded by Fulgrim. Now, there's 4 legions who have just arrived at the drop site, And they've instantly begun reinforcing it because one of the legions is the Iron Warriors, who I'm currently painting up at the moment. I've got to put the hazard stripes on the bolt guns, but otherwise they're pretty much done. If you want to see more of them, you can check out the project on Beasts of War called Iron Within, Iron Without. I'll link it in the comments below. Anyway, Iron Warriors are the 4th Legion. They are the Siege Assault and Attrition Specialists. Their Primarch is Perturabo, and their motto is Iron Within, Iron Without. They're actually master builders and architects. They excel at building beautiful things. Twice in the series we see them, in a matter of a few days, build these colossal world wonders. Unfortunately, Perturabo's biggest thing is that he doesn't feel appreciated. And he doesn't do anything because he doesn't think his work is going to be appreciated. Because he is a child. He is a petulant child. He is asked why he never builds anything, and he says, well, no one ever asks me. And they say, yes, because you keep it all secret, and you don't tell us you can do all this stuff. His legion is the Siege and Assault Legion because he basically gets given all the worst jobs and agrees to them. He's not allowed to be given regular Imperial Army troops. They give him penal legion and units that need to be punished because he just grinds them in the meat grinder. He uses people's lives like bullets. Basically, that's the thing that's given. But Perturabo is effective. Perturabo gets things done. If you need a siege ended, you send Perturabo because he'll finish that siege for you. The Iron Warriors have a mathematical approach to warfare, where they say, if we spend 5,000 lives, we'll take this fortress. If we spend 20,000 shells, we can do it with 2,000 lives. So let's do a mass bombardment, then we'll take the fortress. 2,000 people are going to have to die. That's just part of war. And the Iron Warriors are... The thing that really annoyed Perturabo, or sort of shattered him, was Olympia. Olympia, his home planet, which is basically ancient Greece in space, rebelled against the Emperor. And he was forced to go and put down his rebellion that was led by his stepsister, his foster father's daughter, I think. And he had to crush his own home planet to bring it back into compliance with the Imperium. And he carries an immense guilt from that. And he is here on Istvaan to get rid of that guilt. He is here to prove that he is Perturabo. He's the best. He's not just a washed up hack. He can get things done. And Perturabo is very pissed because he built the chamber at Nicaea. Nicaea was the trial of Magnus. He did not know why the emperor asked him to build a big palace. And so he built a big palace, a beautiful thing that he'd personally designed to be his greatest artwork, his greatest masterpiece of architecture. And what was it used for? It was used so that Mortarion could drag his brother Magnus the Red in there, condemn him for using psychic powers, condemn Jagatai Khan and sort of Sanguinius as well, say, psychic powers are wrong, you using them is wrong. And was used to condemn his building was a monument of condemnation of his own brothers. And Mortarion was a big figure in having that done. So Perturabo's got a bit of a score to settle with Mortarion as well. Speaking of scores to settle, and the Iron Warriors are, of course, the ones fortifying the drop zone, because all they know how to do is fortify. That's, as the joke goes, one of the Emperor's children is dinging a dish, and they're like, oh, too bad we don't have any Iron Warriors here, they could do this for us. Obviously tongue-in-cheek. The second of the 4 Loyalist Legions here to reinforce the original 3 are the Night Lords, my favourite legion. I never should have got rid of my old Night Lords army, I love them. I probably will do one again in the future. The 8th Legion, led by Primarch Conrad Kurz, whose battle cry is Ave Dominus Nox, which means Hail the Lord of the Night. Conrad Kurz is often described as Space Batman. He's more like Space Punisher. Conrad Kurz is mentally insane. He has 2 personalities. Conrad Kurz, who is his rationality is he's the perfect judge. He's meant to be the perfect law keeper and perfect judge that would rule over the imperial courts, basically. He'd be the chief justice of all the imperial courts. However, he was not raised at all. He grew up as a feral child on the basically most criminal planet in the entire universe, Nostramo, which was essentially you just had to murder daily to get food, basically. It was such a disgusting, filthy place, riddled with crime, and permanently locked on the dark side of the planet, so, you never got any sun. He conquered that planet by being the scariest thing on it. The smallest crimes, like if you stole a loaf of bread, he would skin you alive over several days, piece by piece, broadcasting it to the entire planet, and then display your corpse all over the main cities. He once brutally tortured and killed a woman because she tried to commit suicide, which he saw as a crime. He's the Punisher, but he's known as Space Batman for some reason, but he's the Punisher. He is the scariest thing, and he believes that people respond well to fear. And he's proven correct on Nostromo in that people are so terrified of him, they will starve to death before they will even steal like a crumb of bread. Because he will find out and he will brutally kill you and your family. Conrad Kurz is ruthless application of... I said before, he doesn't believe in innocent people because he believes that everyone has committed some crime at some point in their life. And so anything I do to anybody is basically justified because they're a criminal. And anyone on the earth would behave exactly as I do. They're just too scared, or they're too weak, or they don't acknowledge it. They refuse to acknowledge they're just as bad as me. I'm not evil. Which is not true, as he finds out in the series, which drives him completely insane. When he meets someone, he gets a vision of their death, which is always good. Whenever he meets somebody and sort of says hi, he sees them brutally killed in the sort of a prognostic vision of them. He is very interesting, Conrad Kurz. The other side of him is the Night Haunter, which is just a psychopath who loves killing and torturing people for fun. He's a sick dude. But the 8th Legion are the Terror and Psychological Warfare Legion. They're designed to be sick people. They're sick freaks. The Emperor's children decorate their armor with stretched out skin and a bunch of skulls. The Night Lords have always done that. The Night Lords have always had stuff like this. My favorite is the ribcage and spine of someone flensed and, skinned alive and then put on the armor. That's pretty cool, I think. They're pretty nasty. Night Lords have a philosophy where if they come down to a planet and they skin alive and brutally torture everyone on the planet over a period of about a month, ritually just brutally slaughter everyone, the next 10 planets they come across aren't going to mess with them because they know what's going to happen if they resist. Any resistance is met by wholesale, mass, brutal, worn-out torture. And this works. Unfortunately, what happens is you do that, and then you leave, and then people just rebel anyway. And that's what happened to Nostromo. As soon as the Night Haunter, as soon as Conrad Kurz left Nostromo, there was no more punishment because he was the punishment. So the gangs basically took over, and they started feeding their own people into the Legion. They started sending degenerate murderers and rapists into the Legion to get more power. Conrad Kurz basically found out about this. He blamed himself for not stopping it earlier. And instead of doing something rational about it, he went to Nostromo with his entire legion, his entire fleet, and he turned the planet into golf ball-sized little pieces of rock. By destroying it with every gun he could come across, he cracked his planet open and destroyed it. You're not allowed to do that. You can't just destroy a loyal Imperial planet and crack it into like tiny chunks. Think of the Earth turned into little rocks the size of your head. Let's camera like I mean bigger chunks than that, but the amount of power you have to do that. And he did that, and naturally the Imperium was like, we need to maybe look into this guy because he's probably crazy. This is 50 or so years before the heresy. And Rogel Dawn and Fulgrim arrested Conrad Kurz. And I love Conrad Kurz, that's one of the long stories, so it's over quickly. Kurz basically went into a psychotic rage where he almost killed Rogel Dawn with his bare hands by clawing at his face and tearing him to pieces, and then he basically went and escaped with his legion and has been not unpunished, but he's been been very suspicious ever since. He basically hates his own legion. He talks about I never felt any attachment to these people. They're all just degenerate psychopaths. Because I am just a criminal worthy of death, and so is everybody else. So why would I be attached to anyone? There's people who've done hour-long breakdowns of who Conrad Kurz is, far beyond what I've just said. So he's very interesting, Conrad Kurz and the Night Lords. The 8th Legion Night Lords with the 4th Legion Iron Warriors are joined by the 20th Legion, the Alpha Legion. So the 20th Legion has their Primarch Alfarius, although technically they have 2 Primarchs, Omegon and Alfarius, Alpha and Omega. Alfarius is the public one. Nobody else knows about Omegon. Although Alfarius is actually Omegon and Omegon is actually Alfarius, because Alfarius was never lost with the other Primarchs. He stayed on Terra secretly, and then when they found Omegon, they called him Alfarius and did a switch. Which makes complete sense when you spend 20 minutes drawing it out on a timeline, but for that, basically, they're the ultimate special operations, psyop warfare, deception legion. Their motto is Hydra Dominatus, because their symbol is the Hydra, the multi-headed thing that you cut off one head, 2 more grow in its place. That's basically the Alpha Legion. Their other battle cry is for the Emperor. They can wage planet-level wars, and you don't even know you're fighting them. They're like the CIA in the 20th century, where they come in, distribute a bunch of space cocaine, a bunch of all the rival gangs, get them fighting one another, cause mass chaos, and then the Imperial Army arrives and restores order in your country and liberates it from the evil, nasty cartels and rebel groups that have been fighting one another. And it turns out the Alpha Legion funded the whole thing, and they coordinated the whole thing, and they were there manipulating everyone to cause these little proxy wars so that the big, strong, beloved Imperium could come in, settle the war, and have a loyal population to come through with it. The Alpha Legion at one point went into a big orc-held area of space, and orcs love fighting. They love nothing more than fighting and being orcs. And they made them flee in terror from this orc-held space by just being psyop warfare guys, doing crazy stuff that the orcs couldn't understand. They try and march this way, and then suddenly the entire planet's caving in on them. So they go another way, and there's another rival warman there, and they have to fight them, and then they turn around and their camp's been blown up by someone, and all this sort of stuff. The Alpha Legion are very cool. They are unfortunately also one of the legions that doesn't know what's going on, because everyone in the Alpha Legion is Alfarius. To outsiders, if you ask an Alpha Legionnaire, what's your name? They say, I am Alfarius. Because the Alpha Legionnaires are slightly bigger, and Alfarius is slightly smaller as a Primarch. So they're able to switch places with their Primarch. Is Alfarius even Alfarius? You don't know. In the books, you say, well, this is Alfarius and this is Omegon, but it could just be 2 line troops. There's little special operations parts of the Legion that have no idea what other parts of the Legion are doing. And they run counter to one another at all times, basically. They get in each other's way because they don't talk to one another, they don't communicate. Some of them are literally brainwashed to think they are Alfarius, so they think they're a Primarch and they run around doing Primarch stuff, and everybody else is confused. So the Alpha Legion are absolute genius special operations warfare people. Unfortunately, that corrupts the way they do things. So, we move on to the final of the 4 Loyalist Legions, the Wordbearers. The final of the 7 Loyalist Legions, really. The 4 Reinforcement Legions. The Wordbearers were formerly the Imperial Heralds. They are the 17th Legion, and their Primarch is Lorgar. Lorgar, around 50 years ago, or maybe 100 years ago, the Wordbearers openly believed that the Emperor was a god. Lorgar basically needs a deity to follow because he needs to justify his behavior, which is pretty tragic. Pretty terrible behavior. When he conquers a planet and kills a bunch of people, he needs to say, I did this for the God Emperor or for something other than my own glory, which is sort of the way Lorgar works. Lorgar is betraying what's called the Imperial Truth. The Imperial Truth is basically the atheistic religion of the Imperium, which is that there is no religion. And the Emperor will literally kill everyone on a planet if they refuse to give up their religion. And when the Emperor becomes a god to Lorgar, who writes a book called the Lectitio Divinitatus, which is the book that is used in 40k to justify worshipping the Emperor as a god, and build those planet-sized cathedrals that Horus saw in the visions before Istvaan III, the Emperor gets Lorgar's legion to a city called Monarchia, the perfect city, the city the Wordbearers used as the model of all imperial worship, and the Ultramarines aboard to Monarchia with the Wordbearers, and the Ultramarines glass Monarchia from the sky. Over a period of a few weeks, they bombard it with orbital weapons and flatten the Wordbearers' perfect city. The Emperor then comes down to the planet after Lorgar has a hissy fit and smashes Guilliman with his mace, Illuminarum, smashes him in the chest, to which Guilliman replies, "Are you done with your tantrum?" And then the Emperor comes down and forced the Wordbearers to kneel in front of him. He came down and, using his psychic powers, forced 100,000, 200,000 troops to kneel in the dust of their perfect city and to acknowledge that he was not a god. And for the past 50 years, the Wordbearers have reformed their legion. They no longer believe that the Emperor is a god, and they've been given some Adeptus Custodes, which are the Emperor's personal bodyguards, to make sure they don't believe the Emperor is a god. They were told that everything they had done up until this point in the Horus Heresy was nothing. Up until this point in the Great Crusade was nothing. Every planet they conquered had to be reconquered because they had this false religion. Because when the Wordbearers conquered somebody, they changed the planet into an emperor-worshipping planet. So basically, their score was now 0, and they had better get those numbers up. So the Wordbearers were a reformed legion who had a bit of a run-in with the Emperor, but were now here on Istvaan V to show their true loyalty. So, as the Gorgon of Medusa dies, the Ferrus Manus was known as the Gorgon, which is a sort of endearing nickname that has many backstories about how he got it, but that doesn't matter. As they come back, instead of seeing open arms and brothers and cousins, they see the muzzles of bolt guns as the Iron Warriors, as the Night Lords, as the Alpha Legion, and as the Wordbearers open fire on them in what is now known as the Istvaan Drop Site Massacre. The Wordbearers had stopped worshipping the Emperor. They did. They stopped worshipping the Emperor and instead started worshipping the Chaos Gods, because Lorgar doesn't care about if something is good or if something is moral. He cares about whether or not it's true. And the Chaos Gods exist, and so he will worship them. And they have power, and they can give him some of their power, so he will worship them for their power. And for the past 50 years, Lorgar has been purging his legion slowly. He has corrupted his sons by possessing some of them with literal demons. Argyltal is the leader of the Gal Vorbak. Argyltal is a phenomenal character, and you feel really bad for him. But he is possessed by a demon called Raal, something like that, who basically takes over his body in battle and grows a bunch of crazy... Here's a picture of Argyltal, who is actually a protagonist in a bunch of books, and somebody I quite like. This is what he looks like in 30k. Welcome to 30k. The Wordbearers... Lorgar was the first heretic, which is actually the name of the book that describes what happened to Lorgar. Lorgar stopped worshipping the Emperor and started worshipping the Chaos Gods. The lodges we talked about earlier, remember the lodges that were in the legions, which was sort of, they helped filter between traitor and loyalist, and they were the secret societies that worked within the legions to shift opinions and find out who was where. They were created by Lorgar, and they were created to introduce this heresy into the Imperium for the glory of the Chaos Gods, basically. All of this is Lorgar's fault. Hashtag blame Lorgar is the meme of the Horus Heresy. So Perturabo had sworn an oath of loyalty to Horus. He was the only one who did that. He was actually shocked that nobody else was forced to do that, because Horus had forgiven him for doing what he did on Olympia. And the Emperor had too, but the Emperor had no reason to say, oh, well, it's okay what you did on Olympia. It was a traitor world, and you brought it into compliance. I mean, that's your job. Of course you did the right thing. But the Emperor didn't do that. Horus did that, because Horus is the charismatic master leader. And so he saw something, and he took advantage of it. He gave Perturabo the only thing Perturabo ever wanted, which was recognition for how great Perturabo is. Even though Perturabo he never does anything to make you think that you need to give him that recognition, but he desperately wants it, which is so weird. But Horus had gone to Perturabo and said, "You are the master of war, basically, and Dawn, who you hate, is the master of defense, and I need you to crack open the Imperial Palace so I can go and kill the Emperor. And you're the only one that I know who could possibly beat Dawn, because he's a genius, but you're smarter than him." Basically is what Horus said to Perturabo, and Perturabo dealt with the few traitors in his legion. Most of his legion were pretty on board with what was going to happen anyway, so they turned traitor as well. Conrad Kurz was insane, obsessed with punishing things, and he saw the Emperor as a hypocrite and as a criminal, kind of in the same way Angron did, but for different reasons. And he said, well, the Emperor is obviously guilty, and he thinks he's better than everyone else, just like everyone thinks they're better than me. I'll show him that he's really just the same as me. Conrad Kurz really wants to be assassinated, because that would show that he was actually right all along. The fact that you're killing him shows that killing someone is just punishment for their crimes, and he's committed many crimes and he deserves to be killed. So ironically, Conrad Kurz, he's fascinating, but he wants to be punished for what he's done. So he rebels to give the Emperor an opportunity, basically. He's also insane. And Sevatar, who is the equerry of basically the top marine of the Night Lords, says the famous words just before Istvaan V in the traitor meeting, "Death to the false Emperor." He's the first one to say that, and the Night Lords are all on board with the rebellion against the Emperor. Not necessarily because they like chaos. The Night Lords have nothing to do with chaos, even in modern 40k. It's a tool they use, basically. Same with the Iron Warriors. The Alpha Legion are weird. As I said before, the Alpha Legion don't know what the Alpha Legion are doing. But the Alpha Legion turned traitor, even though half the Legion sort of stays loyal. And it's very crazy, basically. If you see Alpha Legion, you have no idea whose side they're on, which makes for awesome stories. But the Alpha Legion turned to chaos. I turned to the Horus Heresy because of an alien group called the Cabal, who tells them that if Horus wins, then he'll wipe out humanity, which will defeat the Chaos Gods, because the Chaos Gods get all their energy from humanity, which isn't technically true, but basically Khorne, who is the god of war, gets energy from conflict, war, fighting, bloodshedding, anger. Nurgle gets from disease, pestilence, depression. Slaanesh from excess, from pleasure. The Eldar actually made Slaanesh. I'm not sure how wiping out humanity would solve anything. And Tzeentch is the chaos god of trickery and magic and deception. So if you do schemes and plots, that fuels Tzeentch. So basically, the Alpha Legion are siding with Horus so that Horus can win and then turn on everybody else and kill everyone in the galaxy to defeat chaos, which is the Emperor's plan to defeat chaos. So the Alpha Legion are all over the place. The Alpha Legion it's safe enough to say they're traitors right now. The traitor legions attack, and the worn out, ammunition depleted loyalists have no chance. Out of 89,000 Salamanders that started Istvaan V, 7,000 are left. Out of 80,000 Raven Guard, there's only about 3,000 left that managed to escape out of the actual conflict zone. Some of them get into orbit and flee. Some of them just sort of fight a guerrilla campaign for the rest of the war. The Raven Guard are saved by a Raven Guard who had a psychic vision from Corax, unintentionally, because he's a latent psyker, telling him to bring a ship to Istvaan. Because, of course, the traitor fleet turned on the loyalist fleet, and then the hidden traitor ships came out and did basically in the void what had happened on the ground and ambushed them, basically. The Iron Warriors are basically also completely destroyed. Vulcan is taken down by a bunch of Night Lords and killed, and his body is taken by Conrad Kurz onto his ship because Kurz hates Vulcan. And one of the best parts of this is when Corvus Corax impales Lorgar on his lightning claws. He drives them through him, and they come out his back, protruding out the back of his ribcage and spine, and he just drives these lightning claws through this Lorgar who's despisable. And then Conrad Kurz attacks Corax and sort of drives him off, and Corax ends up fleeing with a mixed force, where only the Raven Guard from that force survive because the others just can't keep up. And for the next couple of days, he leads a guerrilla campaign, ambushing and doing sort of hit-and-run attacks, guerrilla warfare style, until Corax and the Raven Guard can escape. And spoilers for the rest of the heresy from here on in. The Raven Guard, with only 3,000 Marines left in their whole legion, end up doing a bunch of cloning experiments which go horribly wrong, create a bunch of mutants. So they're out of the heresy. The Salamanders are completely destroyed, basically. They're shattered, as are the Iron Warriors. So 3 legions are shattered at Istvaan. 3 Loyalist legions are shattered. 7 Traitor legions are pretty much intact. The remnants of the Loyalists become what's called the Shattered Legions, unsurprisingly. They can steal a bunch of void ships and take off. They turn into guerrillas, partisans behind the lines, raiding supplies and doing all sorts of stuff. And quite a few stories in the Horus Heresy novel series are set with these guerrilla forces. Some ships get away, not many, but some. Corvus Corax gets away, one of the only Primarchs to actually get away. First Manus is, of course, dead, as is Vulcan. And the battle cry of the Salamanders from now on is Vulcan lives. So, at this point in the heresy, 3 Loyalist legions have been completely scattered and shattered. 7 Traitor legions are in pretty good condition. You've got the Sons of Horus, the World Eaters, the Emperor's Children, and the Death Guard have purged their traitors, and they're now sitting at about 3/4, maybe 2/3 Legion strength. The Iron Warriors, the Alpha Legion, the Night Lords, and the Wordbearers have taken care of their problem earlier, and are now sort of ready to take to the war. Conrad Kurz actually said that he didn't bother purging his legion because if he started purging, he wouldn't know when to stop, and he'd basically just kill everyone. So not everyone needed to purge. Perturabo and the Iron Warriors are sent to Foul to attack a force of Imperial Fists which had been sent in what's called the Retribution Fleet to attack, to find out what's going on. So basically an Imperial Fists detachment on its way to Istvaan, where they will fight the Battle of Foul, which is interesting, but I don't think I'll cover that. The Night Lords are sent to do a terror campaign in the eastern fringe of the galaxy. The Wordbearers and the World Eaters are sent to Ultramar, which is the Ultramarines' home system. We'll find out why they were sent there. It might not necessarily be for what you think. They are sent to this region of space controlled by Reboot Gilliman and the Ultramarines. And every other legion makes a beeline for Terra, although it will take them 8 years to get there because they have to make some detours along the way. Basically, every Primarch just starts doing whatever they want, essentially. You see one of the Primarchs, I can't remember who it is, laments that the Loyalists have such good Primarchs, and he's left with degenerates like Fulcrum, who becomes a Demon Prince, people like Angron, who are so riddled with rage that they literally can't feel anything, Perturabo, who is such a baby that if you mildly insult him, he will try and kill you, and, people like that. The Horus Heresy is in full swing. It's currently 7v1. The only confirmed Loyalist Legion left active is the Imperial Fists. 2 more to go, 2 big 4 events to start the Horus Heresy. The third is the Battle of Prospero, which is the Thousand Sons disciplined by the Space Wolves, who have been sent by the Emperor to bring Magnus back to Terra in chains to answer for his crime of using Psychers. And the Battle of Calth, where the Ultramarines' loyalty is going to be determined as they've gathered in Legion strength at Calth for a campaign. So we'll see where they line up. The White Scars are still debating which side they're going to join. They don't even know there's a heresy just yet. Neither do the Ultramarines. And pretty much the rest of the galaxy is still trying to figure things out. The Blood Angels will be tested on a planet, Cygnus Prime, where they will be trying to be corrupted by Khorne, who is going to tap into their genetic defect, which turns them into psychotic, blood-mad space vampires. So we'll see how they come out of that. So join me for some Horus Heresy history. These won't be too frequent, just every now and then. More for my own amusement than anything else. I'm not a lore channel for Horus Heresy or anything like that. I'm just a little history channel who likes to paint miniatures and play war games and talk about those things. So thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.